Prince and Princess of Wales about to roll duties, and they're at the Natural History Museum. They're with a group of school kids, I believe, from Lewisham, which is in South East London, and they're visiting the gardens. I cannot understand why they went yesterday when all weather forecasters had said it was going to absolutely chuck it down yesterday. So we take a look. Honestly, I just think it's brilliant. Let's see. So you can sort of see it doesn't look too bad at this point. And then if you keep, I mean, look at that.
So what you can't see is me, the other side of the camera, also crouching behind an umbrella trying to stay dry, but it did absolutely tip it down.
And you've got all these little kids whose parents have obviously done their hair so well that morning. I mean, like, you're off to see the Prince and Princess. You're going to see William and Kate. It'll be amazing.
But a lot of the headlines, I'm not sure if your editor, Val, had told you to
Former
write this.
editor.
What would you have done at the Times had they said, please write me an article about what's changed about Kate's hair? Would you have rolled your eyes and gone, oh...
Yes, I might have rolled my eyes. I might have expressed my opinion forcefully and simply.
So there was a lot of stuff on social media and elsewhere, some of it positive. Of course, it's social media, some of it very negative about the change of...
Is it blonde or is it bronde?
Yeah.
That's the big debate.
And unsurprisingly...
Sorry, blonde or...
Bronde.
Bronde?
Sort of a blondie brown.
Oh.
Well, unsurprisingly, I'm not going to get into that because I don't care.
Good. Hold on a minute. I'm normally the one that doesn't want to talk about dresses and things, and suddenly you want to move on from a kind of fashion thing.
Picture this, my dear friends, while half the world burns with real problems, climate disasters, economic turmoil, wars that tear families apart, the British press has found something truly earth-shattering to obsess over. Are you ready for this groundbreaking revelation? Kate Middleton's hair is 2 shades lighter. Stop the presses! Alert the Commonwealth! The future Queen has gone bronde. Yes, you heard that correctly. In a world crying out for authentic leadership, we're being fed a steady diet of hair highlights and umbrella choreography. And if you think I'm being dramatic, wait until you hear what happened when William and Kate dragged innocent schoolchildren out into a torrential downpour, all for the sake of a photo opportunity that no one asked for and fewer people needed. Now, if you've been following the headlines, and let's be honest, who hasn't been force-fed this story, you'll know the Prince and Princess of Wales decided to step out yesterday, despite the heavens opening up in a torrential downpour. The weather forecasters had been warning for days that it would be dreadful. The rain was forecast with the certainty of death and taxes. The skies looked more ominous than a Game of Thrones winter, and yet off they went, dragging along schoolchildren and eager families who were promised a glimpse of royal perfection. Instead, they got drenched. They got cold, they got disappointed. Imagine, if you will, being a parent who took such care that morning. You're up early, brewing coffee, checking the weather app for the 15th time, hoping against hope that maybe the forecast was wrong. You're brushing your child's hair with extra attention, dressing them in their smartest outfit, the one usually reserved for school photos and Christmas morning. You're telling them, with all the excitement you can muster, you're off to see William and Kate today, darling. It'll be magical. It'll be something you'll remember forever. And what happened? Those little ones, innocent, excited, trusting little souls, stood out in the cold, under pouring rain that seemed to mock the very idea of royal magic, clutching soggy programmes and wilting flowers. All for the sake of a staged royal walkabout that could have been postponed, should have been postponed, but wasn't, because heaven forbid the royal schedule be disrupted by something as mundane as common sense. But here's where it gets truly maddening, my friends. What was the great takeaway from this weather-beaten fiasco? What did the media, so desperate to polish Kate's image that they'd probably find a way to make hypothermia look glamorous, choose to focus on? Not the children shivering under soggy umbrellas like extras in a Victorian tragedy. Not the absurdity of scheduling a royal outing in weather that would send most people running for shelter. Not the disconnect between royal privilege and public inconvenience. No, no, no. The great revelation, the headline that would dominate social media and fill column inches was Kate's hair colour. Was it blonde? Was it bronde, that inexplicably trendy portmanteau that sounds like a rejected Game of Thrones character? Had she gone lighter, darker? Was this a statement? A rebellion? A cry for help expressed through highlights? My dear listeners, is this truly what the monarchy has been reduced to? Endless debates about whether Kate has gone 2 shades lighter or whether William looked more windswept than usual. Is this the profound political discourse we're supposed to embrace in 2025? Britain faces economic strain that would make Dickens weep. The cost of living crisis continues to squeeze families until they can barely breathe. The Commonwealth grows increasingly restless, with nations questioning why they should bow to a crown that seems more interested in photo opportunities than genuine partnership. Climate change threatens the very future of the planet. And yet, the propaganda machine insists we pay attention to hair dye. The beauty industry must be laughing all the way to the bank. Forget geopolitics, forget social justice, forget the crumbling infrastructure and failing public services. What really matters, apparently, is whether Kate's colorist achieved the perfect shade of sun-kissed sophistication. But let's dig deeper into this manufactured obsession, shall we? Because this isn't just about vanity or superficiality, though there's certainly plenty of both. This is about control. This is about distraction. This is about keeping the public focused on the shiny baubles, while the serious business of power continues behind closed palace doors. Think about it. When was the last time you read a substantial article about William's policy positions? When did Kate last give an interview that went beyond safe, scripted pleasantries about children and gardens? When have either of them taken a genuine risk, made a controversial statement, or shown us anything resembling authentic leadership? The answer, my friends, is never, because they don't have to. Because the media has collectively agreed to treat them like living dolls in an elaborate royal playhouse, where the only things that matter are costumes, poses, and whether the lighting is flattering enough for the evening news. Now let us absolutely contrast this with Harry and Meghan, because the hypocrisy here isn't just obvious, it's nauseating. Whenever Meghan changes her hairstyle, and I mean whenever, whether it's a trim, a curl, or heaven forbid she dares to wear her hair in its natural texture, it becomes a scandal of international proportions. She's accused of vanity, of trying to upstage others, of being frivolous and attention-seeking. When she wore dark nail polish to an event, the British press acted as though she'd committed treason. When she chose to wear pants instead of a dress, you'd have thought she'd declared war on tradition itself. Remember the earrings controversy? The same media that now gushes over Kate's hair colour spent months dissecting Meghan's choice of jewellery, turning every accessory into evidence of her supposed character flaws. They counted the cost of her outfits down to the last penny, then accused her of being extravagant when those same outfits cost less than what Kate spends on a single handbag. But when Kate emerges with slightly lighter locks, suddenly it is hailed as a bold new look, a style evolution, a modern approach to royal glamour. The same publications that crucified Meghan for breathing differently on Tuesday are now writing love letters to Kate's hairstylist. The double standard isn't just staggering, it's systematic, it's deliberate. It's a masterclass in how institutional racism and classism work in practice, wrapped up in pretty packages and tied with Union Jack ribbons. And you know what the most tragic part is? This obsession with Kate's appearance isn't even flattering to her. It reduces her to nothing more than a clothes horse, a walking mannequin whose only value lies in how well she can model the latest trends. Is that really the legacy she wants? Is that how she wants to be remembered? As the woman who made bronde respectable? Because let me tell you what I remember about Meghan's appearances. I remember her speaking passionately about women's education at UN Women. I remember her visiting the Hub community kitchen and not just posing for photos, but rolling up her sleeves and actually cooking alongside the women there. I remember her advocating for paid family leave, for menstrual equity, for mental health awareness. When Meghan changed her hair, she was also changing the conversation about race, about mental health, about what it means to be a woman in the public eye. When Kate changes her hair, we get lifestyle content. And let us not ignore the underlying issue here, the elephant in the gilded room that everyone seems determined to pretend doesn't exist. This constant obsession with Kate's appearance is not just tiresome, it's a shield, a distraction, a convenient way to avoid asking the tougher questions that might actually matter. Why are William and Kate so reluctant to take on real leadership roles? Why are their public appearances so shallow, so heavily staged, and so utterly dependent on weather-permitting photo opportunities? Why, after more than a decade in the public eye, do we still know so little about what they actually believe, what they're passionate about, what keeps them awake at night worrying about the future of their country and their subjects? Because, quite simply, William and Kate have perfected the art of doing very little while looking polished. They have mastered the royal equivalent of busy work, the kind of meaningless activity that fills time and creates the illusion of productivity without actually accomplishing anything of substance. They step out, they smile, they wave, they cut ribbons, they pose with flowers, and then they retreat to their palaces, leaving the headlines to gush about hair and hemlines while the real work of governance and leadership happens elsewhere. It's political theatre at its most vapid, and we're all supposed to applaud. Meanwhile, the younger royals who dared to be outspoken, Harry and Meghan, were vilified for trying to modernise the institution, for speaking openly about racism, mental health, and the cracks in the monarchy's golden facade. They were punished for suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the royal family should stand for something more than photo opportunities and charity galas. William, I must add, has cultivated a reputation for being serious and statesmanlike. The press loves to describe him as future king material, as though gravitas could be measured in photo ops and sound bites. Yet where is the evidence? Where are the passionate speeches about causes that matter? Where are the risks, the uncomfortable stands, the moments when he chose principle over popularity? Does he speak with the fire of someone who understands that the crown comes with responsibility as well as privilege? Does he challenge the status quo, even when it might cost him favourable coverage? Does he use his platform to address the urgent issues facing his future subjects? Climate change, inequality, social justice? No, he arrives at ribbon cuttings like a beautifully dressed ghost of leadership. He gives safe speeches that barely skim the surface of complex issues, carefully crafted by committees to offend no one and inspire no one. He lets his wife's hairstyle carry the headlines because it's easier than developing actual opinions or taking actual stands. And Kate, though constantly hailed as the picture of grace and elegance, and yes, she is undeniably photogenic, has yet to demonstrate meaningful substance. Yes, she looks elegant holding an umbrella in a downpour, but elegance is not leadership. Poise is not policy. A perfect smile is not a substitute for a sharp mind willing to tackle difficult problems. Her so-called projects are endlessly teased and delayed, like movie sequels that never quite materialize. When they do finally launch, they're often recycled ideas packaged with new logos and press releases, initiatives that sound impressive in headlines but achieve little in practice. Early years development, mental health, photography, all worthy causes, but what has actually changed? What concrete improvements can be traced back to her involvement? And yet the press insists she's changing the world, one hairstyle at a time, one carefully staged interaction at a time. They write about her quiet influence and behind-the-scenes work, as though secrecy were a virtue in public service, as though the people paying for this institution don't deserve to see tangible results for their investment. I cannot help but think of Meghan again here, brilliant, passionate, complicated Meghan, who used her platform to amplify women's voices, to talk about paid family leave, to promote mental health awareness and to address global issues of inequality. Meghan, who sat under the same torrential rains of criticism from the British media, yet continued to speak her truth, to push boundaries, to refuse to be diminished. Think about what we knew about Meghan's beliefs, her values, her vision for the world, even before she joined the royal family. She was an advocate, an activist, a woman who used her voice when she could have easily stayed silent. When she married into the monarchy, she brought that same energy, that same commitment to making a difference. And how was she treated? Torn down, nitpicked, analysed, criticised, accused of stealing attention, of being too ambitious, of not understanding her place. Cast as a villain in a story that should have been about progress and possibility. The double standard is not just unfair, it is dangerous. Because when an institution like the monarchy relies so heavily on superficiality, it risks exposing its own emptiness. You cannot build lasting relevance on hairstyles and weathered walkabouts. You cannot inspire loyalty with nothing but costume changes and choreographed appearances. At some point the people will ask, where is the substance? Where is the leadership? Where is the vision for a better future that makes all this pomp and circumstance worthwhile? And so, my friends, I say this plainly, without the diplomatic niceties that usually cushion these conversations. William and Kate may charm the cameras for now. They may inspire odes to bronde hair and umbrella etiquette. They may continue to coast on the institutional momentum that carries them from one meaningless engagement to another. But history will not be kind to empty performances. History remembers leaders who took risks, who spoke truth to power, who used their platforms to make real change. History forgets the beautiful people who said nothing, did nothing, stood for nothing beyond their own preservation. Leadership requires courage. Real courage, not the performative kind that shows up for pre-approved charity events, but the moral courage to take unpopular stands when they are necessary. Compassion not just for the cameras, but for the people whose lives could be improved by better policies and genuine advocacy. Depth, not just the appearance of gravitas, but the intellectual and emotional sophistication to grapple with complex problems and complex solutions. These are qualities Harry and Meghan have demonstrated in abundance, even at great personal cost. They risked everything, their titles, their security, their place in the family, their comfortable lives, to speak honestly about their experiences and to continue the work they believe in. The Prince and Princess of Wales, on the other hand, seem determined to play it safe, to coast on appearances, to let hair colours make the headlines while avoiding the difficult, necessary conversations about the monarchy's role in a changing world, about Britain's place in a post-colonial reality, about what it means to serve the public in the 21st century. And perhaps that is why they cling so tightly to the glossy coverage, why their teams work so hard to keep the conversation focused on fashion and photography rather than policy and purpose. Because without it, what remains? Two figures drenched in the rain, with very little to offer beyond the shine of a camera flash and the fleeting fascination of a new hair colour. So the next time we are told to marvel at Kate's new shade of blonde, let us ask instead, what difference does it make? What are William and Kate doing to earn the loyalty they expect, the taxpayer funds they enjoy, and the lofty titles they inherited? What legacy are they building beyond the superficial? Until they can answer that, until they can show us substance to match the style, my friends Meghan and Harry will continue to outshine them, not because of hair, not because of headlines, but because of heart, because of courage, because of the radical idea that with great privilege comes great responsibility. Until next time, keep asking the hard questions.